Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, once again. But this time is a very special night because today we're going to get to the final analysis for Age of Empires 4. Don't worry, I've watched my previous 4 conclusions that I've done at the end of each campaign as I played through them. So I have everything refreshed. I finished all of the rest of my duties regarding my jobs and those things previously, so I'm free to spend the night with all of you, and I will bring you today the complete and full final analysis after 22 days, maybe a bit less, 20 days they were, because one stream was it had some issues because Twitch was not working that day. It wasn't my connection, but well. Over 20 days of gameplay, let's say. As a reminder, I played the whole game on hard difficulty, but not only that, I played it, I didn't update the game on purpose, just so I could play the hardest version possible, the raw version that the developers, both Relic and World's Edge, originally intended, right? I played the whole game, not only on hard difficulty, but on version 1.00, right? And this is the ending. After all of these over 20 days of gameplay, this is the end result, what you'll see once we finish this. Second thing, just in case you are interested regarding how we got to this point, well, watch the previous VODs, or at least specifically the previous one to this one. Number 21, it will be, I don't know what it will be on YouTube, the previous to this one, because it will have the first part of this battle as well as the previous level, and there you will have, as you will see there, an hour and 32 minutes, an hour and a half, even a bit more, 2 hours, because I reloaded sometimes, of gameplay, which contains the first section of the mission we're going to play right now. Okay? So, the first half, let's say, well, even more, maybe 60-70% of the mission, we did it on Tuesday. So this will just be the ending, and I wanted to save this whole stream for the final analysis, right? Because it will be long, it will be detailed, in-depth, with a lot of specific highlights that I've been analyzing. So you get the point. I wanted to have enough time as to bring you all a proper final analysis for this one. Okay? So, perfect. There we go. All right. Sorry, I was looking at the connection because today there's a massive event apparently on Rust, and it's apparently the connection. It's working, but I don't know for how long. So let's better get to it. But first of all, as I always say, yes, I'll be back to my rants tonight. It's the perfect day. You know that I always get to the rant at the point of the final analysis. You know, I belong. My native language is Spanish. I know you don't have to care about this. If you don't care about it, just skip. As if you're watching this as a YouTube bot or a Twitch bot, just skip to the gameplay. If you're just interested in my analysis, also thank you from the bottom of my heart. But you must understand that I care. I truly care from the bottom of my heart about education. In this case, education about video games. You know, I'm an English professor. But in this case, about video games. And my native language, which is Spanish. Now, you see that the Spanish, I always say this. we must not let the illiterate gamers, and I've defined that term as people who sadly have no experience whatsoever regarding video games, take over the gaming industry and cause a disaster. Now, before you bash me, before you insult me, before the beast known as ignorance, which should be controlled by rational people, before all of that mob of ignorance comes to insult me, or anyone who may be watching and wants to insult me and bash me, at least first listen to my argument before doing so. Well, we are being invaded by illiterate gamers, people who objectively are unable, or better yet said, they are unable to objectively measure the quality of a video game, just as we do on this channel constantly for the past year, as we've been doing for the past year, as we are doing right now, as we will continue doing in the future. They are unable to objectively measure the quality of the game. You may be wondering or thinking, because the impact relativism has had on the world during the Age of Enlightenment has certainly affected most of the population, at least. You must be thinking, there is no such thing as objective analysis, especially regarding video games or movies or books. No. Everything is a matter of opinion. Well, that's called relativism. Believing in the fact that there isn't an objective truth, an objective reality which is external to our own thoughts. Relativism believes, and those who have been poisoned in their minds with relativism believe that if they think something, and if enough people do the same, if a group of people, if the majority of people believe something, that is automatically true, because the majority believes that. No, that's a fallacy. Individual thought here inside, your thoughts, they don't change matter. They don't change objective reality. Well, let's apply that to video games. I know this is boring, but I need to continue repeating this endlessly because it is key and the main problem with the gaming industry, with the movies industry, with the modern world in general. But specifically here we do game analysis, so regarding video games. Well, what's the result of applying relativism to video games? We can apply it to different things, but in this case we'll apply it to video games. The quality of a game is absolutely subjective. All I'm doing right now, supposedly, is simply externalizing, simply expressing with words what I think, what I can perceive, from a video game, what I can notice when I play a video game, the different features, but everything here inside. I play it, here I think that, and I'm communicating it to all of you. Wrong. Through experience, through objective analysis of reality, not what we think, not opinions, objective analysis of reality, we can get real, or at least philosophically realist conclusions. That's the opposite to relativism, philosophical realism. Through experience, through different deductions as well, we can get to the objective reality. Well, in the case of video games, no, not everything is a matter of opinion. There are good games objectively, and there are bad games objectively. Fortnite, it's a pile of crap, and I will link this to what's happening right now, because the Spanish-speaking gaming community, my native language, there's a huge gap of knowledge. The average Spanish-speaking gamer has a huge gap of knowledge when compared to the English-speaking gamer. That's why I always clarify all of this, because all of my audience, as small as it may be, they're all English speakers. But anyone who may be watching, and they don't understand that communities from different languages, I'll speak for my own, for the Spanish speaking gaming community, the average, of course there are exceptions, I guess I'm one of them. As you could see, I've played the most obscure games that I could showcase to all of you, and I have many, many more. I keep track of everything. Well, of course there are exceptions, but the average Spanish speaking gamer has no idea about video games at all. Well, the first game they play, Fortnite, and they have their and here's the problem, the macaques, the disgusting and degenerated ignorance, the macaques, the Spanish-speaking streamers, trust me before you insult me, these people are the worst. The worst. People who have who haven't finished primary school, they have no desire to self-improve. Well, all of them, they're copying somehow the English-speaking community in this aspect, not the good aspects. And they are creating a server, and they are all playing Rust right now, and they are spreading ignorance among their audience full of sadly uneducated gamers, uneducated players, whatever. And that's the problem. Those people are unable to objectively measure the quality of a game. We get as a result people, a whole generation probably, and this is the point of all I've been saying for the past 10 minutes, we'll get a whole generation of players who will tell us, or who are going to think, they're all going to think that Fortnite is the best game of all time. You would be surprised how many times I've seen ignorance, because there's no other way to define them. The correct way to define them is ignorance, because they deny reality. They deny reality, objective reality, in favor of a fallacy of relativism. That Fortnite is the best game of all time, that GTA Roleplay is the best game of all time, that Fall Guys is the best game of all time, then Among Us, etc., etc. You can see the pattern. I bet anyone can notice the pattern. The pattern is that they are unable to tell the difference between quality and a pile of crap such as Fortnite. A quality game and a pile of crap such as Fortnite. Why are you saying that? Or why do you say, or how can you say, because that's what usually relativists say, that's their trap. They question, they will argue that, no, but why are you saying that? Why are you saying that? Well, I can explain you. The level design, I can objectively identify why Fortnite is a pile of shit, and the RTS games I've been playing, or a lot of other games which I haven't played a lot, are masterpieces, absolute gems. Let's go over one by one before we get to the gameplay. Sorry for this. If you are not interested in this philosophical discussion I do in my channel, I will simply I will separate the gameplay from my philosophical discussion about the gaming industry. But this is needed. At least someone, in this whole world, will know the truth, the objective truth. The level design, the graphical effects, the gameplay mechanics, the environment, or the ambience, the soundtrack in Fortnite, all of those aspects are zero. They're terrible. It's a pile of crap. Or grab another game, Among Us, all of those multiplayer, all of those stupid multiplayer games which are the flavor of the month. Grab any of them. This Rust, which they are using right now to spread stupidity. But for those of you who have a brain and who love to think and analyze reality and not simply accept the lies of the masses, let's say, the fallacy of relativism to be precise. For those of you who may be interested in the truth, the objective truth, the level design in Fortnite is terrible. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, to say one, Knights of the Old Republic, Age of Empires 1, well, 2, if you want something more popular, Dawn of War, Armies of Exego, any of the Liquid Entertainment RTS games. They are master classes. They are absolutely brilliant level designs. Compare the Water Temple in The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, or I don't know, the Mountain Temple in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, the final temple. Compare them to Fortnite. What's the level design? What's the creativity, the ingenuity behind creating the environment in which the player is going to be inserted? What's the ingenuity? In Fortnite, we grab an empty map, we place some random buildings, go ahead, kill each other. There's no investment on artificial intelligence as well. There is no investment on specifically placing NPCs to give you side quests or anything like that. See, I am using objective truth. I'm not telling you the game is a pile of crap. No. I told you that because of what I'm saying right now, as a consequence of what I'm saying right now, which is the objective analysis. That's how the gaming press, which is sadly pretty full of illiterates, people whose main activity in life, their main leisure hobby, isn't playing video games. Maybe it's, I don't know, going out, walking in the park, doing trekking, I don't know, swimming, playing basketball, tennis, football, American or our football, the European one. Anything. Their main leisure activity certainly isn't playing video games because they don't love them, sadly. All of these forgotten games, not Age of Empires 4, but for example, all of the ones I've been playing, they act as if they never existed because they only know the loss of the bribe. And the bribe are the different advertising campaigns. They give them the advertisement, the money for the advertisement. See that their websites always have ads about different consoles and those things, well, and games. But well, let's get back to the case of Fortnite. Zero level design, no investment on artificial intelligence. See, everything is objective. Graphical quality. What's the graphical quality of Fortnite? Let's get another example. Red Dead Redemption, Gears of War 5, Crysis, any Unreal Engine game from a AAA developer. Grab any of them and compare it to the graphical quality of Fortnite. Well, we could argue, for example, let's grab something like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Super Mario Odyssey. Those games aren't technically perfect. Let's say they don't use those realistic textures which are 4K and all of those things. In fact, it has an absolutely perfect art style, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, as well as Mario Odyssey. And most of the Nintendo games, I'm a fan of Nintendo, in fact. But for example, Breath of the Wild was only 13 gigabytes, almost 14. But the art style, and more importantly, the physics applied to those games, to those Nintendo games, they are pretty advanced when compared to Fortnite. Fortnite is simply an empty map without physics applied, without NPCs, without any kind of artificial intelligence investment, and they simply throw in 100 people so they can kill each other like stupid apes. I'm sorry, that's the reality of that pile of crap. That's the the reasoning, the logic behind the creation of the game. Create an empty map, throw 100 people in, and then let the streamers, the social media addicts, and the rest of the sadly uneducated and ignorant gamers do the job to promote our game. Graphical quality, zero. Zero. I could name you 1,000 examples. Red Dead Redemption, Gears of War 5, of games which had 4K textures and all of those things. But not only that, the physics and the graphical effects were also incredible in those games. Now I need to bring water. Should we analyze any other aspect? We've already covered level design, graphical quality, artificial intelligence, the soundtrack. Let's go for the soundtrack then. And the storyline. Storyline in Fortnite, zero. Zero. As I've said, let the players do this. Let the players do the rest of the campaign, of the promotion, of the advertising campaign for the game. Let's use social media and all those things. Creating a meaningful storyline with depth and interesting characters, with each one acting according to its personality, a cohesively developed plot in which, as I've said, the characters act according to their unique and interesting personalities. Now, clearly, that's absolutely unneeded in Fortnite, Rust, and all of these piles of crap. I said Fortnite because it's the one everyone plays. Among Us, Fall Guys, all of those games. Viral games, let's say. Storyline, soundtrack. Fortnite has no soundtrack. There are no memorable tunes. There are no memorable themes or music at all in Fortnite. I can tell you that, for example, the main theme in Halo, the main Age of Empires theme, God of War, The Legend of Zelda, from the Link to the Past to Breath of the Wild, which they were different according to the game. For example, the tunes in A Link to the Past are naturally 8-bit, or much more similar to that, 16-bit, sorry. They are more cheap tune when compared to the version of the Ocarina of Time 3D on the 3DS. Halo 1's theme is different to Halo 2's theme. You will say, well, it's the same theme, but the instruments used are different. So, well, there's even a difference inside of the themes. So all of that requires an incredible amount of effort, which the developers for Fortnite didn't invest into. They didn't do that effort. So simply put, because of everything I've explained, and because of everything I've told you, which is the analysis of objective reality, not an opinion, because you could see that I could explain every bit of information I just said. See, I just watched the gameplay mechanics and compared it to other games. Experience and naturally logic and reasoning to deduce the difference in quality. That's the thing. Simply put, Fortnite is a pile of crap, as well as Among Us, as well as Fall Guys, as well as PUBG, and all of those multiplayer crappy games that I've been mentioning. Among them, we have Rust, which is now being played by my disgusting and illiterate countrymen, by my illiterate compatriots. The macaques sadly only know how to poison people's mind and how to spread mediocrity and ignorance. That's the sad reality of the situation. No one will tell you, because everyone, or at least 90% of the world population, is relativist. And if the majority of the people will say, no, that's your opinion, That is your opinion, and you are offending us. No, I'm not offending anyone at all. I am encouraging critical thinking because education rules the nation, in this case, the gaming industry. That's the reality. That's the truth. The objective truth of the situation. Relativists usually love to create a fallacy in which the majority, since everything is a matter of opinion, everything is subjective, it's affected by something else, by a different factor to take into account. If everything is affected and there are no absolute deductions, there are no objective deductions of reality, as I did some seconds ago, we get to the point that everything is a matter of opinion and it doesn't matter. And you are just saying what you think, what you perceive of reality, what you notice. No. It's an objective it's an objective process of deduction. There's a huge difference between that and saying, no, my opinion is this, my opinion is this, my opinion is this, and everything is a matter of opinion. So what you are saying right now is offending me because I can't say that Fortnite is the best game. No, you can say it, but it's a fallacy. It denies reality. It doesn't take into account objective reality because you didn't take the time. If you believe Fortnite, Rust, PUBG, or any of those multiplayer games are the best games of all time, they can be great for something specific, for a niche objective, for example, providing a good multiplayer experience, but they can't be the best games of all time, not even among the first 100, not even among the first 1,000 best games of all time, not even the first 5,000 games of all time, among the best 5,000 games of all time. They can't, because saying that is denying reality. You are not taking reality into account. It's not my opinion. I just told you why is objective real. Why what I just described is objective reality. All right. With all of that said, and sorry to anyone who may have arrived or discovered my stream and you are new, for this long intro, I usually do these intros to provide the context of my analysis. My analysis is based upon philosophical realism. It takes into account philosophical realism, not relativism, because I do support philosophical realism and not relativism. So that's why I wanted to remind you all of you of that before getting to the analysis. Sorry if you were here just for the analysis. Well, I just said you could skip to this section. I mean, you can do it anyways, but I will specifically split the YouTube ball at this point just so you can get straight to the gameplay. So, getting straight to the gameplay. Perfect. We are ready, and let's go. All right. If you remember last time, and just in case you are interested, we were at this point. I actually launched an attack, a failed attack, because I need some artillery. At this point, we're just defending because we need artillery. We need to be careful because here the artificial intelligence exhibits a very interesting pattern, which is using artillery to deal area of effect damage. So I've created this strategy. If you are interested in watching the first part of this mission, which is the final mission for the game, check out the previous VOD, just in case you want to have the full sequence. The game has been played on hard difficulty at version 1.00, as I've said, so it's the hardest version possible because there are no balance patches. So here, the artificial intelligence did a very interesting strategy, which was using artillery, as you will see right now, to deal area of effect damage, and we have to do, and I've come up with this counter attack. I've split my army into 3. We use the first group, which is number 3 here, or I use those to meet the enemy head on, while groups 1 and 2 flank the enemy, as you just saw right now. I wanted to explain the strategy because on Tuesday I was so focused I forgot to explain how we got to that point, and I just simply, well, you can watch the full sequence, but I didn't explain it so well. So the first group acts as the shock troopers, let's say, the shock cavalry. They face the enemy head on, while groups 2 and 1 take out the artillery. Now, at this point, in any other mission for this campaign, I would have been able to simply overwhelm the artificial intelligence and beat this level. But here it's very interesting because I'm being constantly attacked by these groups, which let's replace those guys we just lost, which has those siege engines which deal area of effect damage, right? So I had to come up with this specific strategy. But to get to this point, watch the previous VOD if you're interested in seeing the whole process. We actually started with only this building. We had to expand all of our base all the way up to here. I depleted all of the gold on the map. We are kind of like producing gold passively at this point through the, not this one, through the cabins, through the hunter cabins, and these ones. And well, we cannot trade, so yes. So I need artillery. I just need the artillery. So let's go for those cannons and let's begin the counterattack. We just need to breach that wall that you'll see in a moment. You cannot see it, but it's over there, and take the city. I'm just waiting for the siege engines. Maybe I can go for some upgrades, but that's it. We pretty much have we pretty much did most of the mission last time. So this will just be the finale with the final analysis. So the main focus of today will be the final analysis. The gameplay, if you're interested in watching me struggle through this mission, well, that's in the previous VOD. But I guess more or less you will have an idea. There you can see the area of effect damage. Look at this. I had a lot of troubles dealing with this formation they do. I actually had at some point it was hard for me to push through this forest. I had to push all the way from here through here. We are almost there, and now they don't have any more camps. They just send those groups to attack us. But well, we have some healers there with all of the upgrades, so we just need to wait for the cavalry. But in the meantime, I wanted to highlight that the artificial intelligence for this final mission was pretty good. They went for the weaknesses, let's say, in my army. They tried to exploit the weaknesses of my formation, of my particular formation, which you can see is pure cavalry at the highest, fully upgraded. So we'll have to wait for the cannons and we will go for the siege. They killed... What's that? Well, I don't know why those 3 guys went over there. But well, yeah, come back. I'm pretty sure you weren't meant to be there. All right, second cannon is ready. We'll produce some more healers. And well, this is the solution I came up with. Because otherwise, here we retreat a bit. Let's see if we can save more guys. Let's go for the artillery. And we don't have enough healers. We need more healers. Come on, we need to heal faster. Well, here, here, and here. I know all of this seems pretty organized and under control, but trust me, the previous mission, this mission, the first part of this mission, wasn't. So, well, we have the troops. Let's go. Let's go straight forward. Let's just attack them. Let's just attack them. We will merge all of these into a single group. We'll merge all of this into a single group. Damn. There we go. I know everything looks under control, but trust me, during the previous part it wasn't. It was difficult getting to this point. Watch the previous VOD in case you are interested, because this will just be the ending and the final analysis. Today we are doing just that. Why are those guys getting over there? Right, then let's try this over here. They are clearly not at the proper rally point. Attack, come on. Quickly destroy the siege engines before they... The rest can wait. The siege engines are the problem here. These ones should be powerful against buildings. We'll just ensure more cavalry is delivered here. And less progress. They will continuously send attack parties. Don't think everything is under control, because it isn't. Trust me, this fortress is huge. We will need patience. And well, I pretty much have an idea of what we should do, so here, let's where are the cannons? Alright, more or less over there. I need troops delivered over there. Let's do this. Trust me, it's a huge fortress. We'll need patience and all of the firepower we can get. Come on, people, proceed. Alright, I need those cannons at the front of the formation. Those deal a lot of damage. But anyways, I should anyways mark this. Here. Just in case. Alright, let's form up there. And let's ensure the cannons should take care of the fortress. And the cavalry will just defend them. Okay, we should protect the cannons. Right, we're inside of the walls. Let's hope so. We'll need healers delivered over there as well. See how fast our population cap is dropping. No, let's go for the gate. Let's go for the gate once again. We can only attack the gate. We'll go for it. So once the gate is down, we need to take care of the rest of the units since.
Muscovite war machine broke through Kazan's mighty
Let's see what we can do.
but the city had a backup defense. A second inner wall stood between Ivan and the Khan's personal guard.
What else could we produce? We could go for some archers here. We could go for some archers, but this should be it because I'm more or less here. All right. Let the cannons do the rest. Let's save our leader. And now we just need to push. Where are those arrows coming from? They're coming from that position, so we'll attack them with our cannon. Let's get rid of the wall. Good. As we march. See how many troops we just lost. See how many troops we just lost. Heal them. Just protect the cannons while they do their job. Get some heals. Let's do this. Let's just split those groups here. Hey, we're being attacked over there. Alright, now that they're down there, that we've destroyed the wall, let's get to kill those archers. What's going on there? Get rid of that. We've got more healers. Awesome. More healers, please. And let's use the rest of our powerful war machine. 6 and another 6, more or less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Then we can send more troops here. And let's remain here. That's enough. We need more troops. Let's continue the siege from here. Just protect the... There we go. The healers are there. I should bring one more cannon just in case. Alright, we destroy that. I wonder where my archers could be. Because I don't see them. I don't see them. Where are they? Where's your rally point? I could have sworn I created some archers. Alright, there they are. Must have locked the door. Yeah, I locked it. No, it's not locked. Why are they going there? It must be shorter. Well, no, but I don't want that. Let's do that. Look at that. There they are. Hey, wait, I can upgrade them. I should, in fact, upgrade it. The rest of the upgrades are ready. So don't worry. I'll just push a bit more. Grab that. Destroy that. We will retreat, in fact, for some minutes. But well, the worst part was the wall, but there's an inner wall, so we need to ensure that we have the artillery to destroy that wall. All right. But more or less know that the harder part of this mission was in the previous vault. We'll just get to the final analysis tonight. Well, anyways, maybe we're going to encounter even more resistance inside, but well, let's ensure that that's not a problem. There we go, some minor resistance. But for the most part, we've reached the wall. Yeah, we lost a cannon. We just lost one cannon. I should have brought some archers. I actually had handgunners. Sorry, musketeers in the case of the Russians. Handgunners are for European civilizations. There's the third cannon. But those attack parties kind of like kill them. In fact, if they send one of those attack parties, we should be wary. Should be careful and because they can wipe out my whole army in a matter of seconds. That's why I'm keeping an eye. Where are the archers here? Where are the archers? Where are you? There you are. Come on. Come on, archers. Real cavalry. Real cavalry. Alright. Very good. Keep bombarding the wall. I know this looks so stupid, but... Alright, there we go. Go ahead. Let's push. Let's push. Get inside, come on. The party's inside of the wall. That's something... Damn, they have handgunners. Careful. Where are the archers? Here. Yeah, destroy the wall. Destroy the wall. There we go. Awesome. We need those archers to take care of those pesky guys. Cavalry, take care of those over there. You guys attack the handgunners. I should have created a forward base of operations, but well. A war cry. Mighty war cry. Alright, let's unite command. What's that? Is that a town center? Alright. Cavalry. What's that? Elite can. Okay. Archers and cannons, please take care of those. No, the cannons will take care of this first. Damn, they have handgunners. Damn, so many. So many handgunners. Looks like we'll have some... We'll need something even more powerful. Because the worst part is that they are on those walls. Maybe I should go for mangonel instead of cannon. I will go for some mangonels. They have way too many handgunners. Destroy that wall. But besides those ranged units, there's nothing they can do. The second they lose the wall, they're dead. Go down. Yeah, yeah, but the handgunners are quite expensive. Let's see what we can do. We will eventually succeed. We made it to this point. 140, 42, and that's with the reduced cost. The reduced cost. All right, here. Let's bring some handgunners, shall we? I tried to evade paying that high price, but well. Oh, no. We'll just remain at the northern section of the city. I don't know why, but there's no soundtrack for this part. Maybe because I had to load that from the previous session, because... Okay, there we go. We've got flame arrows, so that should deal some damage. Where are the rest of the units? Over there. Alright, we have a mango now. Hey, we have a healer. That'll be awesome. That'll come in that healer will come in handy. There, and then return here, more or less. Alright, the mangonel should be able to deal with those handgunners. They should be out of range. Or better yet said, we should be out of range from their shots. Alright, there we go. Cavalry, you will remain here. We'll just use these guys. And that one, of course. Okay, this should be enough. Don't worry, anyways. Come on, get rid of him. See, I knew I had to take care of that wall. Why is it that they have such an awesome range? Where are the mangonels? Did they kill? Did they destroy them? No, they didn't. Why is it that units attack buildings when I use the move attack command? So the mangonels are not attacking. Damn handgunners, damn hand cannoneers, well, whatever. Here, why aren't you killing them? Because you couldn't move, or what? There we go. There, those guys. God damn it. There we go. That's the area of effect damage I wanna see. Damn, they had... This place was full of archers all over the place. So... Damn, we are all dead. Heal them. Come on, they should be dead. There we go. Clearly we'll have to go for handgunners. No more cavalry. We need handgunners. Or musketeers in our case. We don't produce handgunners. For the Russian it's different here in this case. I am sick of my units taking so much time to get there, so we'll create a forward base of operations. There we have the musketeers. We have a healer. Ah, but we killed those guys. Maybe we survived. Or not. No. Alright, there we have the musketeers. Those units are very expensive. They are not meant to be produced like this at all, but well, it's a very particular case. I assume we are expected to use the best units possible, so we're going to do that. We're precisely going to do that. Where's the other villager? There it is. There he is. There he... Okay. Damn, see? I told you this was going to be a long siege, but at least we stopped their attacks. Because, well, we decimated half of the city. Oh, well, the other half, more or less, this section is a bit destroyed. There's one final section of the city that we need to continue. That we need to destroy. We need to continue the siege. No. Nope. Here we go. Then we'll go exclusively for handgunners. It's the only way to breach that. We are taking a whole city. That's not a simple town or anything like that. That place, and they had the archers ready to kill us. They have the archers ready to attack us from all directions. Hey, those mangonels proved to be very effective. Let me see if I can improve them. No. Hey, maybe I should go for Trebuchet instead as well, or at least one. Where is it here? Well, that should do it. Anyways, they cost a lot. There we go. That should do it. That should be our final setup for the final push. Defensive cannon, force archers. No, where are the improvements to artillery here? No, I've already researched all of. Time to reload the manual. Here, I knew I was forgetting about something. Reload for Trebuchets. Springles. No. Siege engines, fire armor, and crossbowmen. Well, we don't need that. Clearly, we'll need a lot of siege. So let's go for it. Traction Trebuchet against massed units. And let's repair the ones we have. That cannon survived so many battles. And the rest will be all handgunners and, well, a bit of cavalry, maybe. We can go for a bit more of cavalry. Just to protect them. Just to protect them. But the main attack force will be composed of ranged gunpowder units at this point, because you just saw it. Anything weaker than that will be killed instantly. Go back to work. Thanks for your services. But well, the attacks stopped for the most part. Or totally, because we destroyed the whole place. What a strange way of destroying a city like this, but well. Don't worry, we had the gunpowder units. We'll take care of this. I had to change the formation because, yes, I wasn't expecting that much resistance. Should have brought the siege engines from the beginning, but well, it will be a bit of a long siege. But anyways, 1 hour, half an hour, because the first 30 minutes I used them to do my intro, so the siege will be successful in the end. I'm sure. Are there archers in here? You can't attack walls with your units. Did you realize that? Hey, can we get up? Can we get on the wall? Hey, that's awesome. Let's see. Well, look who's in control of the wall now. And you have cavalry, you're as good as dead. I know, but they have some ranged units. Hand cannoneer, let's see if they can do something against my musketeers. Oh, whatever you can do. My cavalry will take care of... Wait, these guys are kind of like orange. Besiege Kazan. Well, looks like I did something right. What? I won! What? Ah.
Ivan and the Rus overwhelmed the Khan's guard and seized the city of Kazan.
Ah.
For the first time, Muscovy began to push its borders eastwards, setting its ambitions on claiming ever more distant territories.
I thought I would need
for
to.
the Russian Empire.
I thought I would need to destroy the whole city. But no. Anyways, Oh. So I guess my first siege was successful. Alright. I think Kazan fell to the Muscovite guns, allowing Ivan IV to claim foreign lands for the first time. He had completed the mission of his ancestors, drawing all Rus power under Moscow. Alright, so let's watch the final cinematic. This should be the ending for the final campaign.
Ivan IV had broken through the walls of the ancient city of Kazan, and his army flooded the streets. They hunted down its defenders and their allies, and brutally sacked the city. Kazan had fallen to the unstoppable military might and strategic innovation of the Muscovite war machine. In the years that followed, Ivan IV waged war after war to bring vast new territories under Moscow's rule. By 1547, he had declared himself the first Tsar of all Russia. And his never-ending fight for territory set the course for those who ruled after him. Moscow was no longer a small fort on the banks of the Moskva River. It had survived centuries of Mongol oppression and wars with its neighbors. Its evolution from fort to city, to state, and to empire would continue. Moscow's rise transformed Russia into one of the world's greatest superpowers.
Alright, and that's the final book. Perfect. Awesome timing. We are ready to begin the analysis then. I wonder if the credits are going to roll, since I've finished all of the campaigns. Roll the credits? No. Alright. That's it. Okay. I don't like that. They should have rolled the credits at this point, but well. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the final analysis. But first of all, because I will need this. No, but I can have. Alright, yes, let's get straight to the final analysis. Give me some minutes. Yes, I wanted to count the amount of missions, but well, we can do that with some with some help, we can close the game at this point. Yeah, because I have a structure that we're going to follow for the analysis. So don't worry. Let me set up the analysis. It's been a while since I've done one of the final analysis. Last time was before Christmas, on December, for Shadows Awakening, another great game. But well, before we begin with the analysis, well, I set everything up. It will take me some minutes. Give me 5 minutes, because I have to change this, and change this. All right, we're good. I want to have this here, this over here. Sorry, I need to organize the stream a bit, but we're good. We'll begin with the final analysis soon. Listed. There we go. Let me go for that. Perfect. Don't worry, we'll get to the it soon. First of all, I wanted to remind you once again of the context for this game. The context of this game, as a consequence of what I said during the intro, that the modern player sadly has been educated towards baseless RTS games, without base buildings, without base building mechanics. Sorry, I'm organizing everything here. I'm organizing everything here. It's lagging a bit. Sorry. But here we go, because I want to have all of the missions to go one by one here. There we go. Because I wanted to count them and everything here. Awesome. This is ready. Hey, what's going on with this? Alright, I had to go over here. Wait. Alright, don't worry. Let me organize this. But well, the context, as I was saying, is the fact that the RTS genre is on the brink of destruction, as I said, as a consequence of what I mentioned during the intro, and as I've been mentioning in my streams every night, because of the uneducated streamers who cause uneducated players who will never, or at least until they are shown true quality, alright, alright, there we go. Oh, it's been a while since I've used the analysis camera. It was on December for Shadows Awakening. But well, we are back. The first analysis of 2022, and it's, well, actually this one technically belongs to 2021 because we started playing this one on December. But well, first of all, the context, as I was saying, now that we have everything, the RTS genre is sadly on the brink of destruction, mainly because let me lower that. Mainly because of what I've been constantly mentioning. The situation is critical. This is not part of the analysis. Take it as the intro, which is related to the intro we did for this stream. Because of the uneducated player base that sadly has been generated. Watch the intro in case you want the full argument of what I'm saying before you insult me. Which the uneducated streamers have created the most ignorant mob of illiterate players ever seen. Mainly due to their influence and the exacerbation of multiplayer games. So there you have the context. The RTS genre, this beleaguered genre, is on the brink of destruction. That is the context in which the... Sorry, I was thinking about different things. I was not expressing myself properly some seconds ago. That is the context of the release for Age of Empires 4. That's the important part. That is the context of this AAA RTS release. In the middle of a drought, this is a drop of water. In the middle of a desert, this game was meant to be the chosen one, as we would say in Star Wars. This game was meant to be the one responsible for reigniting the spark of creativity, progress, and evolution of the RTS genre this decade. After the follow-up that was Warcraft 3 Reforged, and at that point I should point out that... Sorry, at this point I should point out that Warcraft 3 Reforged was a remake. So this is the first new AAA RTS game that we have released in this decade at all. With such a name, with a name such as Age of Empires, with all of the importance it has, it's the first one. The other one, there are a lot of excellent indie titles, but this is the only AAA RTS we've seen so far in the past years. If you don't trust me, the only one that fortunately we're going to have Company of Heroes 3 soon, but that's a real-time tactics game. I've countlessly explained the difference between real-time tactics and real-time strategy, so it doesn't count. Pure real-time strategy, Age of Empires 4 is we are in front of the first AAA RTS game released in a lot of years. Sadly, the situation of this beleaguered genre is critical due to the ignorance and all of the things I've said during the intro. I'm not going to repeat them right now. Due to relativism and all of what I mentioned during the intro. If you're interested, watch the intro. Alright, so, taking into account that context. A drop of water, or a bottle of water, in the middle of a drought. But anyways, know that I need to be strict. Know that I need to be strict and fair with this game and the rest of the RTS games I love so much. So this will be a very classic and realistic approach to what Age of Empires 4 has to offer. Probably after saying the longest intro of all time for any game analysis, let's get to it, and we begin with the first category, the gameplay. Let's begin, ladies and gentlemen. Age of Empires 4, the gameplay. The gameplay mechanics resemble to that of a combination of Age of Empires 2 and Age of Empires 3. It's a combination. I can clearly spot a combination of those two previous games. Gunpowder, in fact, is involved. We can see this. Gunpowder is involved in the gameplay, and we can see the influence of Age of Empires 3 with the torches, being able to destroy buildings, but not like we would in Age of Empires 3. Because here we can only attack with those torches, we can only use infantry or cavalry to destroy gates. Alright? Not individual segments of a wall. We cannot simply target the wall as we would in Age of Empires 3 and burn it down, and then create a breach and through there try to destroy the rest of the city. You could clearly see that during this final mission. I needed to create artillery, and all of this that I'm mentioning leads me to my first point. This will be a long analysis. I don't script my YouTube bots. If you are looking for that, look somewhere else. I want a natural, realistic, with a philosophically realist approach and genuine, real analysis. I don't script my videos. So, the first point. This will be long, and I need time to think all of this. First point. The gameplay mechanics inherited, the traits inherited from Age of Empires 3 are not 100% inherited. They are not 100% present. That means I can simply grab a group of units and try to burn the stone wall of my enemy. No, I cannot do that. I necessarily need to bring artillery and archers, because usually there will be archers on those walls. Which leads me to the second part of my reasoning inside of this first point. You can actually send units to those walls, kind of like on top of the walls, just as we would in classic real-time tactics games such as the Total War series. That was a very interesting approach Relic Entertainment took to kind of like come up with a solution regarding how to deal with first of all, the fragility, how weak walls were in Age of Empires 3. In Age of Empires 3, walls were weak in comparison to the damage those torches could deal to them, to the damage cavalry and infantry could deal to buildings. Here, and this is a very successful idea and a very positive outcome for this idea that we just saw, that you need to use artillery as well as ranged infantry to breach through walls. You must be thinking that this is a stupid statement, but no, it is not. If you replay Age of Empires 3 and you try to build a wall or you attack the enemy's wall with infantry and cavalry, you will instantly notice how easy it was to breach through those walls and simply ignore artillery. You didn't need to create artillery to do that. Here, Dave, this is what I'm trying to... This is the point of all of this explanation. They managed to successfully balance the damage dealt by both infantry and cavalry to buildings when compared to Age of Empires 3. It's much more balanced. That's a very positive thing because it simulates a real siege. It successfully gives you the impression that there's a reason for you to use artillery, for you to use ranged infantry, because now you will probably always face archers on top of those walls, and those walls aren't... you are unable to attack them without artillery. That's the important part, or without any kind of siege engines. You can use battering rams or the trebuchets you just saw, or the mangonels, but you need to bring artillery in order to breach those walls, which in turn balances that problem which Age of Empires 3 had. It fixes that issue, that lack of balance between walls and infantry / cavalry units, simply using torches and burning them. Here you can't do that. You can only attack gates, and as you could see, you will probably have a hard time if the enemy knows what he's doing. Alright, so that's a very positive aspect. The buildings are much more resistant, and you can simply attack any part of the wall. It's much more realistic. Good. They came up with a very good solution in my eyes. In my eyes, they came with a very, very good solution. And I have to, at this point, attribute that solution to the experience Relic has had and the influence of the real-time tactics genre that I mentioned. Remember, in the real-time tactics genre, Total War, Company of Heroes, positioning on the battlefield determines victory, and there are much less base building mechanics. But in the case of sieges, if you played any Total War game, you know that you have to create a complete setup. I played most of the Total War games on hardest difficulties, all of the campaigns, and I can tell you, you need to set up a very good formation, you need to be organized, and you need to bring artillery, and you need to take the walls, and you need to be extremely organized to take a fortress, to take a city in the middle of a siege. The siege can last for days. Of course, Total War has its own perks. It's much more realistic, but the adaptation Relic and World's Edge did, the adaptation they did from the real-time tactics genre, Total War, Company of Heroes, more Total War in this case because we're talking about sieges, medieval sieges, to the real-time strategy, to the pure and classic old-school real-time strategy genre, Age of Empires, StarCraft, Dawn of War, Warcraft. It's very, very impressive, and it's quite unprecedented. A great deal of innovation. Alright. So that's the first point. They got that absolutely right. Brilliant solution. I've been constantly amazed by while playing it. Maybe I know I didn't express it, but I wanted to save this for the analysis. Second aspect regarding the gameplay. The balance between races. So I played version 1.00. They maybe they patched it. Guess I'll find out once I get to continue playing this game offline, not streaming, because we finished the campaign. That's what we're analyzing here. I played version 1.00. I'm sure they patched it, but this initial version I played, there's a huge lack of balance between races, and please remember this phrase because it will, and this element of the analysis, because it will affect the third section, the third part, which is the level design. The lack of balance between races. The French civilization, as far as version 1.000 went or goes, for me, because I've been playing this one up until now, it's very difficult to counter the English longbowmen with them. It's very difficult. The other two civilizations, the Mongols, the Russians, and well, the British with their longbowmen, they are more or less, they all have their, I can see, I'm not a professional player, but I can somehow see how they would balance each other out, how they would check each other's weaknesses. But in the case of the French, they only have access to cavalry, to the decent, or cavalry which is good enough to counter the English longbowmen at the late stages of the game. Remember this because it's a very important point for the third part of the analysis. So balance is partial. Partial is not perfect, as we would say at some point of StarCraft 2 or StarCraft. Well, that's always very difficult to achieve, but well, it's good enough, the balance in this game, as to be enjoyable, except for the French civilization. Another thing related to balance and differences between races, which affects the gameplay, of course. The game is clearly divided into two different axes, into two different groups. I don't know if we will have more civilizations, because I think we played with the I played the Romans during the tutorial, but so far the civilizations present in the campaign, we have two Eastern civilizations, two Western civilizations. There's clearly a lack of content regarding this. Clearly an absolute lack of content regarding campaigns. They could have gone for much longer campaigns, much more civilizations, but I'm sure. Sorry, many more civilizations. Sorry. I was thinking about what I'm about to say. Sorry. Many more civilizations, much more content, but they are clearly going to add more civilizations in the future. That's the thing. They're probably saving it for DLCs or updates. I don't know. I hope there are updates. But yes, clearly the game is lacking civilizations and, in my eyes, campaigns. But we'll get to the level design. But well, regarding that point, ladies and gentlemen, third point. Regarding the gameplay, remember we are still in the gameplay category. The pathfinding is pretty well done. I mentioned during the first gameplay for the Age of Empires 4, out of all of my streams, that there was a bit of a tiny problem regarding melee units which need to get through a formation of ranged units. At some point they got specifically stuck at some points, but nothing to worry about. This pathfinding is almost as polished as StarCraft 2 in my eyes, which is pretty good. Not as good, but almost. The pathfinding is pretty well done. There's one thing that I cannot understand about artificial intelligence behavior, which is that they somehow attack buildings first when you issue the move attack command at some points, but for the most part the rest is perfectly executed, except for what I've said. Occasional, if you're paying close attention, sometimes some melee units get stuck, especially in narrow corridors, like a road surrounded by trees and forests. It mostly happens when you don't have room to maneuver. But that leads me to another point regarding pathfinding, which is part of the gameplay. And this game not only inherits some real-time tactics traits regarding sieges and those things, and yeah, taking a city, but also in the battlefield formation and positioning, the formations and positioning on the battlefield. Well, it isn't kind of like decisive to win in this case, because it shouldn't, because it's an RTS game. It's not a real-time tactics game. If you get, I always use this example, if you get flanked by cavalry, and you get attacked on the rear by cavalry in a total war game, that's almost certain defeat. Almost certain. It's very difficult to turn around a cavalry charge on the rear of your infantry or whatever formation you may have, infantry, cavalry, whatever, in a total war game. If you get attacked on the rear or you get flanked by cavalry, it's very hard to turn that around, to win that battle. Here, while it isn't decisive in Warcraft or in classic real-time strategy games, that's not the case. For example, Dawn of War, it's a hybrid because you can take cover, but if you get attacked from any direction, in a 360-degree vision from any direction, it doesn't matter if you're using cover. If you are using cover in Total War as well, but if you are in the middle of the battlefield without any building in Dawn of War, you can get to cover according to the terrain, and you will probably be able to fend off that attack. In Total War, in real-time tactics games, if you get attacked by cavalry on the rear of your formation, if you get flanked by cavalry, you are dead. Here, in Age of Empires 4, this is the point, while formation isn't decisive, it plays a certain degree of... a certain role in determining in your victory, in your success. It's not 100% irrelevant, as it would be in, for example, I don't know, StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3. If you move attack and you have a superiority and you choose to use the proper abilities and you choose to more or less produce the proper units, the proper counters, you will almost surely win. You'll win without many issues at that point. But here formation does play a minor role, but at least it plays a role, because as we could verify that during this last mission, I had to split cavalry in order to evade area of effect damage. Of course, you could say that about the Templars and the Psionic Storm in StarCraft 2. But in this case, well, if you try to attack, in my experience, as I've been playing this game for 3-4 weeks, you need to separate units and you need to attack from different angles, from different flanks, because otherwise your units kind of like get concentrated in a single spot. It's a very particular phenomenon. They get concentrated at a particular spot, and you will lose you won't be able to deal full damage, and they will kind of like begin surrounding, but on their own. But it's difficult for them to do so. It's hard to explain, now I'm realizing, but if you play the game, if you watched the bots, you probably understand me. When the units try to attack head-on the enemy formation, and there's not much room, they begin to get crowded, and you lose a lot of tactical advantage. So in this game, real-time tactics play a minor. It's not decisive as in Total War, of course. If you get flanked and you have spearmen, with all of the upgrades, you will probably be able to fend off the cavalry charge. But they will deal much more damage than they would under normal circumstances without surrounding you. So that's the thing. They have a minor role, and I can see the signature of Relic in that, in encouraging you to divide into different groups and attack from different flanks, not simply grab all of your units and throw them, smash them through the to the enemy army. No. Clearly, this is inherited from the modern boom of real-time tactics games such as Total War, and I can see the signature of Relic, the lab they have for the real-time tactics mechanics, gameplay mechanics. All right. Base building. Let's get to base building. The units, as I've said, you have the classic... Well, I haven't mentioned this, and it's probably the core of the gameplay for Age of Empires. As you all know, it's a classic. The rock, paper, scissors system, as we've said. Infantry can kill archers easily if they get to attack them in melee combat. Cavalry will take out those swordsmen. Spearmen will, in turn, kill cavalry easily, or at least that's the original idea. And of course, cavalry will also be effective against archers, but archers will in turn probably kill all of the infantry before they even reach those said archers. That's the point. Or in this case, we also have the gunpowder units, which are a very unique case because in this game they are powerful against... It's a very interesting case because I don't remember many games in which you mix medieval units, such as archers, with gunpowder units. Here, gunpowder units, they are very specific. They are kind of like hero units. They are treated similarly to hero units. They deal an immense amount of damage. It's pretty realistic. It's a very positive addition to the classic rock, paper, scissors gameplay mechanics because they can be killed by cavalry, of course, if they are flanked. But if they are not flanked, gunpowder units almost instantly kill their targets. Alright, it's very realistic. Very realistic. I don't know what's their damage specifically, but it's very realistic. The impression you will get is that when you get shot, you get killed or almost killed in this game, which excellently, perfectly showcases that contrast between archers' medieval warfare and colonial warfare with gunpowder. It's very well represented. I was impressed by that. I didn't know originally the game would include gunpowder units, so that's a very interesting trait they included, and they add a lot of strategic depth because in the second someone gets to the Imperial Age, they get that huge boost of gunpowder units. That gunpowder units give to the player who successfully reached the Imperial Age. This is what I want to get to. The game is rewarding you for doing technological advancements, and instead of surging the enemy, if there's one thing, and this is related to the first point I did regarding the analysis, that you can attack gates with your units and simply use torches and burn them and not create artillery. If there's one thing this game got right, is defensive gameplay. This game not only encourages aggressive play but also defensive play, because there are a lot of subtle upgrades which play a big role. For example, I'm citing this because I'm thinking about Network of Castles from the first campaign while playing the British, that increased the attack rate of your ranged units which were close to to a castle of a fortress by 30%, allowing you to effectively defend a fort against anything except for trebuchets and ranged artillery units such as the trebuchet and those. Even the battering ram isn't enough if you have flame arrows, so you get the point. In this unit, there's also a clear difference between armored units and non-armored units. Even the counters are somehow subdivided. That is the huge second system for this game. This game has kind of like the rock, paper, scissors system I mentioned, with, imagine, kind of like a wheel with rock, papers, and scissors and the arrows. And of course, then we have, imagine a second layer. A second layer to that wheel is divided into two. Imagine a graphics with 50% and 50%. 50% non-armored units and armored units. There's a huge difference in this game, and that secondary layer, the difference between armor and non-armored units with armor and without it, interacts constantly with the first layer. Imagine the two layers. Secondary layer interacts with the primary layer, with the rock, paper, scissors system, infantry, cavalry, and ranged units. They perfectly interact. I liked that. How they successfully created two different layers for the rock, paper, scissors system. One for the early game at the peak, and they match the different stages for the game. During the early game, you only have to worry about the first one, the primary layer, let's say, because none of the units have armor. They are all unarmored. They don't have armor. You simply use archers, swordsmen, and spearmen. They don't have armor at all. Archers are very, very overpowered during this period. That's why the British are so good at surging in this game, that civilization. Alright, so during early game, you only have to care about the first layer. There will be a point, let's say early game 1.5, not mid game. Well, yeah, we could use mid game. Yeah. Let's say mid game, early mid game, in which you will be facing battering ram. You could face battering rams, mangonels, and nothing. And at that point the second layer comes into play. At this point, the second layer comes into play, and you need to take into account armor. Why? Because once the siege engines get armor, and once the different some units, let's say the swordsmen and the cavalry, maybe for example, if you're going up against the French, I'm just using examples, and they can access their cavalry early in the game, earlier than the rest of the civilizations, and they have armor. They are pretty much impossible to take out with archers. You need crossbowmen. You do need crossbowmen. It's mandatory. Otherwise you will die almost instantly if you try to use archers against armored units, the siege ram, the French cavalry. And that's where the second layer comes into play and interacts with this first layer, more or less like this. Like this. It interacts with that first layer. Right? Remember, the armor, or the lack of armor, which is the second layer, interacts with the classic rock, paper, scissors layer that we were used to. Okay. And the third layer, there's a third layer to the gameplay. I'm trying to kind of like decompose the core gameplay mechanics here. The third layer, secondary layer. The third layer is the gunpowder. Why, you must be thinking? We are talking about late game here. Late game. In the mid game, we will see interaction. Mostly all of the units will have armor at that point, except for the English longbowmen, but they don't need it. They are powerful on their own. They can fend off cavalry attacks with a special ability. They more than compensate. It's a very specific case. So, yeah. For most of the units, they are armored. In case you are wondering, yes, I still have plenty of time to cover the gameplay category of the analysis. And I have many more topics to discuss. Gunpowder. Gunpowder units. The hand cannoneers, in the case of the Russians have a very specific unit, which is the musketeer, which replaces the hand cannoneer, but the rest of the civilizations have hand cannoneers. Gunpowder. As I've said, it's very interesting how this game mixes medieval warfare archers with colonial, with the gunpowder. Age of Empires 2 did this, but in a much more limited way. I think there was only one unit, if I remember correctly, there was only one unit without hacks, of course. There was only one unit, the Janissary or something like that. Not Age of Empires 3. We're talking about Age of Empires 2. There was only one unit which had gunpowder, if I'm not mistaken. Then maybe after all of the expansions they've added more, but initially there was only one. Here they expanded upon this gameplay mechanic, and all of the civilizations have access to gunpowder units. As I've said, this enables the possibility of playing defensively and not simply surging the enemy. It's incredible how this game allows the player to pick a defensive strategy, something most modern RTS games weren't doing. They weren't doing this. They were ignoring that and simply accepting fate hopelessly that the RTS genre should be a Zerg fest, as we would say. One in which the person who created a lot of primitive units without any kind of upgrades would win instantly, and there was a huge issue regarding strategy at that point, because if by simply surging you always win, where's the strategy in that? Of course there were some upgrades, but they were absolutely secondary. Here, this game successfully gives importance to the upgrades and to the defense of your base, and to defensive gameplay mechanics. You can win by using defensive gameplay mechanics, not only offensive gameplay mechanics, and that's pretty brilliant and important to the RTS genre. It's very, very important. I should have said all of this part maybe during the innovation category, but we will repeat it, but expanded with another concepts I want to discuss. Alright, next up. So we've covered most of the core gameplay mechanics. The units were the first thing we covered. Let's get to the base building part of the gameplay. I know my analyses are long and boring, but this is for true fans of the RTS genre, so I'm sure anyone who cares about technical analysis and the RTS genre will thoroughly enjoy them. Let's get to this is the 5 point, or I've lost the count, regarding the gameplay category for the analysis. The others, I don't think there will be that long. This one is pretty important in this particular case. Base building. Let's get to base building. The base building mechanics in this game are also awesome. You know why? Because while it has the most classic base building system we've seen. No, sorry. The classic base. Sorry. I was thinking about another thing. The classic base building system we've always enjoyed throughout the ages of the RTS genre. It adds its signature as well. The landmarks. And this is also part of the innovation category for the analysis. The landmarks, they play a decisive role, even more probably in the middle of a skirmish match than the campaign. But it's incredible how they came up with that idea, because they play a decisive role. They can give you access to exclusive technologies. They can give you an early fortress without paying 1,000 stone. It's incredible that they came up with that idea. I wasn't expecting that until they showcased it during the prior to the release. But they came up also with a great idea to further encourage defensive gameplay, but not only that, to kind of like give the player a sense of choice, that your choices matter. Also, some light RPG touches here and there, which I found all of them pretty incredible. As for the rest, the base building is pretty interesting. In the case of Eastern civilizations, especially the Mongols, they can transport their bases. They can't mine stone. They have to construct. They have to build. They have to construct a very specific building called the oboe. Each civilization is much more asymmetrical regarding base building than any other previous Age of Empires game and most RTS games. Here the civilizations are much more asymmetrical in comparison. They not only have their unique buildings, which may go as far as to affect unit production, but also the economy of your base and your whole gameplay experience. The differences between civilizations go as far as to affect the whole gameplay mechanics in some interesting and creative ways. And all of that should be valued and appreciated by the players. Not only buildings, but also units. They are so asymmetrical, the civilizations in this game. They're so asymmetrical, especially when comparing Eastern and Western civilizations. There's kind of like two separate. There's kind of like the one huge separation. There's one huge division between Western and Eastern civilizations, but then they kind of like further branch. They kind of like subdivide into very unique buildings, each one of them, but also the units. Each civilization here has at least one unique unit, even more than one in most cases, and they also have unique buildings which affect all of the gameplay mechanics. It's incredible how they blended that asymmetrical base building and those asymmetrical units, and how that lack of symmetry affects the gameplay, how it interacts with the gameplay. And as I've said, those three layers: the primary layer with the rock, paper, scissors system, the armored and non-armored units, the secondary layer, and the third layer, which is the late game layer, which is gunpowder units, basically. How all of those elements, though that lack of symmetry, how the fact that this game has such asymmetrical civilizations affects those three layers I've been mentioning. I know all of this sounds complex, but let's use a very down-to-earth example. French can create cavalry during early game to counter the English longbowmen. The English longbowmen are also very OP during the early game. They are unique to the English, and the Mongol archers are also unique to the Mongols. And the fact that you can have mounted cavalry, which was present in Age of Empires 2, but here it's very well executed, much more than the mounted cavalry here. It's much better executed than in Age of Empires 2, because it truly showcases you the advantage it would give you. So it's not. We shouldn't underestimate the feat that it is blending all of these asymmetrical civilizations, all of these elements with the 3 layers of gameplay I've been mentioning. The unique units you have, it's incredible how they blend all of those elements. So regarding the gameplay, and as a conclusion for this category of the analysis, the gameplay is a pretty strong point for Age of Empires 4. I would say it's its strongest point. Yes, I would say the gameplay was the strongest point of the game. Definitely. Perhaps also tied with the innovation we are going to get to in a matter of minutes, but the gameplay and the innovation, pretty well done, because as you know, they couldn't simply destroy. When you destroy everything and begin anew, we saw it in Command and Conquer 4. They tried to kind of like create something totally new, going for something much more experimental ideas, prototypes, which didn't actually resemble the classic RTS gameplay mechanics, but with a bit of a fresh air. No. So, sorry, I'm checking something here. There we go. But yes, definitely they successfully blended refreshing ideas with the classic RTS gameplay system. So I have no complaints about the gameplay. For the most part, it's pretty perfectly executed. Yes. The pathfinding is properly done. The artificial intelligence. No, well, but that's regarding the technical aspect of the analysis. Yeah, we'll get to that immediately. So yes, regarding the gameplay, let me think. No, units buildings. We've covered everything. The terrain. Maybe a bit lacking a bit of content regarding civilizations, but they will probably add them. Sadly, maybe as a DLC, but well, I don't know. They shouldn't do that, but well. It's the gaming industry we live in. Regarding the gameplay mechanics, no, we've covered pretty much everything. Then if I forget about something, I will go back to it. But let's get to the second part of the analysis, the technical aspect, and probably the most important part of it, the artificial intelligence. I must say that I'm surprised. Positively. At the beginning of the game, I was thinking, well, this is going to be a disaster. Definitely you can exploit some moments of stupidity from the artificial intelligence, but generally for the most part, and I would say 90% of the time, at least during version 1.00 on hard mode difficulty. Of course, if you play it on easy, don't expect good artificial intelligence because you are kind of like destroying it. The artificial intelligence will, regarding the campaign and the skirmish mode, will certainly keep you on your toes. It will force you to have decent APM at times, and I would like to highlight the French campaign as well as some parts of the English campaign. The Eastern campaigns are much easier, but I want to save that for the level design. Let's get to the artificial intelligence exclusively. Let's focus on that. During those moments, some parts of the French campaign and the English campaign, the artificial intelligence knew how to cause damage. It knew how to put you in a tough spot, how to force you to improve your APM, your strategies, your ingenuity, your army composition, the composition of your army. You just saw that I couldn't finish the game without creating artillery. And that's good. That's good because it truly captures the essence of strategy, of the real-time strategy genre, of the real-time tactics elements they went for, the positioning on the battlefield. The artificial intelligence, sometimes it doesn't surround you, but if you're going up against multiple foes, it knows how to cause damage. If you are playing defensively, they will go for artillery. It's not a walk in the park. It's not a piece of cake, especially the French and the English campaigns. Even more specific, I will tell you the names. The Siege of Wallingford, I remember, is the most difficult mission of the English campaign. And well, the French campaign, I should highlight this at this point. I'm analyzing hard mode on version 1.00. It had a game-breaking bug for the third mission of the French campaign, which is France in Chaos. The Siege of Paris is also brutal. Brutal. The very definition of brutal. But then I will get to something to some explanation regarding that. And last but not least, the Battle of Point Baleine, the fourth mission of the French campaign on version 1.00, was something I will never forget, probably. Those three, the Siege of Paris, France in Chaos with the bug, and the Battle of Point Baleine. Check out the bots, you can see my suffering, you can see the torture that you can experience there if you're a masochist. And one more, the Battle of Formigny, the final mission, the finale for the French campaign. The French campaign was the most difficult out of all of them. The difficulty... here I knew I was forgetting something regarding the gameplay category of the analysis. The difficulty is on point, but due to the bugs, and that's coming back to the technical part, I found a game-breaking bug during the France in Chaos, the third mission for the French campaign. A game-breaking bug. You have the fully detailed explanation. There, you couldn't get to the population cap. A lot of issues. You couldn't progress unless you captured a specific. Unless you did things in a specific sequence. It's an absolute torture. If you want to play, if you try to play France in Chaos, version 1.00, if you played it during that period. Okay. But clearly, at least the game teaches you how to play, but not only that, it forces you to, the artificial intelligence and overall the difficulty, it's good enough to entertain you. You will be forced to improve, to reload on hard mode. That's awesome. I've heard excellent things regarding the skirmish mode, that the artificial intelligence there is even better. Of course, there were moments of stupidity from the artificial intelligence. The Mongol campaign and the Russian campaign you just saw were mostly easy, were for the most part easy. There's a huge difference in difficulty regarding those. So, yeah. Next technical aspect, you saw me that I've been playing the game locked at 60 FPS. Well, that's because I'm streaming, but the game has unlocked frame rates and unlocked resolution for anyone who may be interested. But the game, at least as of version 1.00, has severe memory leaks or shader cache issues. It consumes a lot of RAM, but of course I am also streaming, so probably if you're not streaming, you can get away with 16 gigs of RAM in my experience. I am kind of like at the limit, because with Streamlabs open, I am at the limit at 15 gigs of RAM being consumed. So it consumes a lot of RAM. Naturally, it's an RTS. That's kind of like the signature of our beloved genre. Because of all of the artificial intelligence and the CPU workload it has, clearly it needs to do a lot of operations, and it will always consume a lot of memory, of RAM memory. Regarding the textures, the graphical effects, and everything we always love, because this game, and I will go back to the first stream I did for this game, in which a viewer told me that my stream was very different according to my settings. No, when played on ultra settings, I've played thousands of games throughout my life, and well, of course, this one isn't Red Dead Redemption 2 or I don't know, any state-of-the-art 4K graphics situation in which you have those gorgeous environments and those things. I found this game to be pretty awesome graphically. Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. The grass is affected by physics, kind of like the wind, the trees as well. The units could have been a bit more detailed regarding the textures. That's true. The models for the units could have been a bit more detailed. That pseudo cartoony style is not the ideal for everyone. I know this game has been criticized quite a lot because of that it had cartoony graphics, but no, it's not Age of Empires Online. You remember that game from 2010, from 2010? I believe it was for 2011. 2011. No, it's not like that. It's not cartoony. On ultra settings, it is pseudo cartoony. It doesn't get to that point, the graphics style, but I like it. This is kind of like the most subjective part of the analysis, because it's the graphical style. Some people like realistic graphics, others like cartoony graphics. I don't mind cartoony graphics as long as the textures are well executed, and it's the case of Age of Empires 4. Except for the units. The terrain clearly looks much better than the units. I highlighted one river that I think it was in the previous stream. It was the other one, in which I highlighted one of during the Russian campaign on Tuesday. We did it. Or no, maybe yes, Saturday of the previous week. Yes, the rivers look awesome in this game. I can tell you with that if you pay attention if you want to verify to check this out. Look at the rivers, especially, and the terrain. Zoom in on Ultra, of course, and you will see that it has a lot of graphical effects, the river, that take a lot of time. For example, kind of like the rocks. Around the rocks, you have a lot of foam. Also below the bridges, pay attention to those things, and I'm sure you will understand what I'm saying. That this game has a lot of graphical effects, and they're pretty well executed, except for the textures for the units. As I've said, I like the fact that the units change their appearance when you upgrade them. That's pretty good, and that they kind of like get golden helmets and armor when you get to the Imperial Age. Pretty well done. Visually, it's very aesthetically pleasing, visually pleasing, to kind of like see the progression. It's a good idea to kind of like encourage the player. Yes, you have progressed. It's very well done to make the gameplay addictive, because you feel the progression and you can visually see it, not only feel it. Alright, but as I've said, pay attention to the foam, the effect of the foam around the rocks when you are playing a mission which contains rivers, or below the bridges, how the effect is perfectly depicted there. It's absolutely awesome. As I've said, better textures for the units, but the graphical art style and quality, I loved it. I loved the graphical style. Please try not to kill me. But I loved the graphical style. I don't think it's cartoony 100%. I think it's 50% Age of Empires 2 art style, while that's pixel. And the how are they called? There's a very specific way to call them. The sprites, as we see in Pokemon, for example. It's 50% that art style and 50% cartoony graphics. Yes, from Age of Empires Online, maybe they're much more similar to those, or Age of Empires 3. But I love how they came up with a unique art style. And the terrain, the terrain, I have no complaints about it. For me, the terrain is perfectly done. And my complaints are regarding the textures for the units, especially the clothes, kind of like the armor at some points. And I don't know if you paid attention to this. This is a very, very, very specific detail. At this point, I'm nitpicking, but I couldn't help but notice the smoke. Your units produce or cause while moving, especially cavalry. It has low resolution. The resolution there is very, very, very low. The smoke effects, I don't know if they patched them, but as of this version, they were almost pixelated, even on ultra settings, and played at 1440p as I played it, so it was pixelated. The smoke the units cause while moving, I don't know if they patched that, maybe that's a bug. And the textures for the clothes of the units, and well, those could have been much more detailed, but those things, that the game looked like a mobile game, that it looked like a graphically ancient game. Sorry, but I don't see the case. I don't see that. At least on my PC, on my screen, the game you just saw me showcase for 4 weeks, the graphical style blends perfectly, and the textures for the terrain are very, very well executed. The physics are pretty good, and as I've said, my only complaints, which are pretty minor at this point, are the smoke and the resolution for the smoke, and the textures for the clothes and the faces of the units, and that's absolutely secondary at this point. So yes, I think the game has a great graphical style. The special effects are pretty well done, with those golden kind of like the golden prototypes for the buildings when you're assigning villagers to construct a building, with all of those golden effects, shiny golden effects. They're pretty well done. And they give you a sense of being involved with the process of building a civilization and waging war against enemies. Pretty well done. The graphical style, the technical aspect, well, they could improve. They should improve. In fact, those memory leaks, the bug for the France in Chaos mission. I don't think there are any more kamikazes like me trying to do the mission, to do the game on version 1.00 on hard difficulty. So they should fix that. It's not fair. That mission is full of bugs. So you will probably won't be able to progress unless you update the game, or you are like me and you love the RTS genre so much that you created a bug challenge series as I did. But well, let's not lose focus, so let's continue with the analysis. The graphical effects very well done. Alright, it's pretty much well executed. There are some technical issues, so it's not. They need to correct bugs, of course. The smoke, they need to fix that or increase the resolution for the smoke when units march. And the textures for the clothes, I think they could have been better. Yes, that could have been better. So, almost perfect, but not perfect. 8 out of 10 regarding that aspect. Then we'll get to the general qualification, but there are severe memory leaks, that's true. But probably they've already updated that, so it would be wasting your time saying it, because they probably updated it. I'm doing a crazy thing here. Level design. The third category for the analysis, and we will get, because I am putting my soul and my sweat in this analysis, I want to analyze even the most tiny details for this game. Of course, all of my analysis is tied to all of the balls. If you want to have a comprehensive idea of what I'm referring to constantly, you need to play the game, pay attention to those things, or at least watch my VODs or whatever, or watch any gameplay. Alright, level design. We've got a total of... let me count them, because we have 4 campaigns. I have them here. We have 10 here. We have 10 here. It was 8. Here it was 9. And here we have the Russian campaign. It's this one. You have 1, 4, 5 plus. Yeah, that would make. Yeah. We've got a total of 35 missions. We've got a total of 35 missions for the campaign, divided or split into 4 different campaigns. 2 of them are kind of like Western campaigns for Western Europe, let's say, the British and the French, and the other 50% Mongol and the Mongol Empire, the Mongol campaign, and the Russian campaign. 2 Eastern campaigns. I must say, first of all, that we have 2 groups then. 2 Eastern campaigns and 2 Western campaigns. Individually, the Russian campaign interacts with the Mongol campaign and the other way around, and the English campaign interacts with the French campaign, and the French campaign interacts with the English campaign. Especially the second case. The French campaign interacts with the English campaign much more than the English. The English campaign is kind of like the one which is the most similar thing to a single package, right? You have everything inside. It's kind of like an all-inclusive hotel. It includes breakfast, everything. It has kind of like its own story and everything. The French campaign kind of like constantly refers to the English civilization, and the Mongol and the Russian campaigns the same. Especially the Russian and the Russian with the Mongols. That's the idea. But well, you get the point. That's the general structure for the campaign. For the campaigns, 35 missions. They have, some of them have 1 more or 1 less, but more or less they are pretty similar regarding the structure. They are divided into acts, let's say 4 acts, 3 acts in the case of the Mongol campaign, 4 acts in the case of the Russian campaign. But well, the first act is a single mission, and it's a tutorial mission, let's say. They all teach you the unique traits of each civilization pretty well. And I must say I must address the obvious topic of this analysis, and the reason why I rewatched my 4 conclusions, because every time I finished a campaign, here we had 4 campaigns, every time I finished one of them, I got to the conclusions. And today I rewatched them after I finished my duties as English translator and professor. So I rewatched them after my job. And they will play all of those 4 conclusions. You'll see them present here. Let's begin with the English campaign. Yes, we'll go one by one, but it will be relatively fast. The English campaign, first we have the Battle of Hastings, which is a tutorial, the North to York, right? 50%. And you'll see right now what my point is, which is the same as the one I mentioned back then. 50% of the English campaign, and 50% exactly, I counted them, you can check out the previous polls, I'm not lying, exactly 50%, 5 out of 10 missions for the, see, I memorized them by heart. 5 out of 10 missions for the English campaign, and 4 out of 8 missions for the French campaign are defense missions, either timed, either I don't know, stopping a siege or surviving a siege, or I don't know, counterattacking afterwards, or whatever. 50% exactly, 5 out of 10 missions, and then 4 out of 8 missions exactly for both campaigns are defense missions. That's a pretty terrible structure for a campaign, doing constant defense missions, forcing the player to play constant defense missions. And I will begin that by saying that the point of the English campaign, in which you will realize that's the point. The point at which it gets unnatural, let's say, it's the fifth, the seventh mission, the Siege of Wallingford. It's a memorable mission, pretty tough, at least on hard mode version 1.00. I'm sure they patched it because it was unnaturally hard. The Siege of Wallingford, be careful with that one. The Siege of Rochester is... See that we have 3 sieges. Wallingford, Dover, and Rochester all in a row. If I remember correctly, those those were pretty dull at the beginning, pretty boring, because as you can see, the structure for the English campaign, even the final battle, the second battle of Lincoln, they're all defense missions. You just have to defend the base. Of course, first you get a pretty primitive base, but as you advance through the game, as you advance through the game, you just get better technologies, but they all lead to the same situation, to the same gameplay structure, defending your base and eventually counterattacking. That's a terrible. This is the most negative aspect I've found for the game during this specific part, the English and the French campaigns. 50% defense missions. I can't stop repeating it. I don't know who had this terrible idea at Relic or World's Edge. I don't know who was in charge of the structure for the campaigns, but that wasn't a good idea. In the case of the French campaign, which is the most blatant and explicit sign, the most explicit case of terrible design for the campaign, are the second, the third, and the fourth missions for this campaign. On version 1.00, maybe they patched it. The Siege of Paris. France in Chaos, which is plagued with bugs. And especially, and this is the peak of absolute nerve-wracking difficulty, that up to this day, I don't know if I could repeat finishing the Battle of Pont Baleine, or however it may be pronounced. Sorry if there are any French, if there is any French audience for not pronouncing your that name properly. The Battle of Pont Baleine is the most nerve-wracking anxiety test you will encounter in a long time. But I wanted to highlight also the Siege of Paris and France in Chaos. France in Chaos because of the bugs, but the Siege of Paris, and especially Pont Baleine, it will probably deter, or it would have probably deterred most people if we would still have to play version 1.00. They probably updated it from finishing the game. It would probably deter most of the player base from finishing the game, but I did it, so I feel proud of myself. I may not be a pro, but I don't think many people will be able to get through the Battle of Pont Baleine on version 1.00 hard mode, or I don't think they would have been able to do so. But oh well. I don't think they would have been able to do so, but well. Also, the Battle of Formigny was pretty brutal. Regarding the French campaign is the most difficult out of the game by a long margin. It is as if they were going for something totally different, and because of the lack of balance between races, well, they couldn't quality test that. And the French campaign, it took me more time than the Mongol and Russian campaigns combined, probably in game time. I had to reload a lot. They're probably the most. If you rewatch my bots, you will see me suffering, and you will understand it. Because even if you have decent APM, you have to specifically do what the announcer or the design for the campaign is telling you to do for that specific mission. You have to be very organized, have good APM, and you have to specifically obey the commands you are given. It's not that you have a creative liberty to improve different strategies. No, it's kind of like sequential. You have to specifically do some actions in a specific sequence. Otherwise, it's impossible. But well, the difficulty is brutal for the French campaign, hard for the English campaign, and the Mongol and the Russian campaigns. Anyone can do them. They're extremely easy. Except maybe for the final mission for the Mongol campaign, but anyways, it doesn't even come close to Pont Baleine. If you rewatch my bots, you will realize Pont Baleine, that specific session, Pont Baleine, France in Chaos with the 3-part bug challenge series, which are specific situations, as well as France in Chaos. Those 3 missions are by far on a totally different league. I like the difficulty. Actually, this may sound stupid, but I've seen a lot of people complain about those missions regarding version 1.00. On the forums, they gave up. A lot of people gave up trying to beat those missions as they were originally maybe unnaturally as well designed. But well, we could finish them here, and I'm proud of it. But this will sound stupid, but I consider that a positive aspect. Even after my suffering, see, this is the maturity required to responsibly analyze games. Even though I suffered a lot, ladies and gentlemen, I suffered a lot during France in Chaos, the Siege of Paris, and especially Pont Baleine. It took me a week to finish that one. That's a positive aspect. The harder the game gets, the better it is. Sorry, that's the reality of the situation, because it shows us that the developers could create something which is a gameplay system in which you are forced to be on your toes, you are forced to use every resource at your disposal, and it seems impossible, but it isn't. It isn't impossible. If I could do it, maybe a pro could have done it easily. If I could, anyone can do it. So that's a positive aspect. Sorry. It is true, and here I will highlight something I've been mentioning during the conclusions for the French campaign. In the specific case of the French campaign, and you can see it in those 3 missions I'm constantly mentioning. If you are interested in checking out what I'm saying, watch the bot for Pont Baleine, France in Chaos, as well as the Siege of Paris, and you'll see what I'm saying. It's difficult to imagine it if you are just getting to the final analysis. During the conclusions, I say Formigny is also pretty brutal. It's a baseless exploration mission. It's the final mission for the French campaign. But you somehow can manage. That one I finished it on the same day I began it. So it wasn't that much so terrible. It is true, and I will criticize this, that while I consider a very positive aspect the hard difficulty for the French campaign, it's a very positive aspect. I loved the fact that they took into account the difficulty. It is true that the source of that difficulty isn't organic, isn't natural. It doesn't emanate from the very essence of the structure of the campaign. It's not part of the structure of the campaign. It doesn't reside in the structure for the campaign. It's not organically achieved, that difficulty. The source of the difficulty, the source of such impossible difficulty during those 3 missions on hard mode and version 1.00, it comes from the lack of balance between the early game French units and the English longbowmen. The English longbowmen, they are absolutely OP during the early game. They can fend off cavalry attacks. They are absolutely OP. You can see me mention, you can watch my VODs and see that I mention it constantly. They are absolutely OP during early game. They probably patched it somehow. I don't know. If they didn't, they are in trouble. But that's the professional scene. It's not my problem. I play campaigns. I analyze campaigns. During those 3 missions, the difficulty is absolutely artificial because of the lack of balance between races. Because between the French units and the English longbowmen. You cannot counter the English longbowmen even though you get access to French cavalry earlier than most races, but it was so expensive, and you are under such pressure during those 3 missions, especially Pont Baleine, that there are no counters. You get into it. It results in a situation in which there are no counters against those English longbowmen, and the cavalry is way too expensive. You try to create crossbowmen, also you have to, during Pont Baleine especially, because of the second layer of the gameplay, which I've been mentioning. You face armored units at some point. Also during the Siege of Paris. Not so much in France in Chaos. France in Chaos is difficult because of the bugs. As soon as they must have probably fixed them by now. So the Siege of Paris and Pont Baleine, they're pretty brutal. Because of that second layer, you create crossbowmen. The crossbowmen don't have the range that the longbowmen do have. The longbowmen have the range of a siege unit. They're so OP. You can finish the whole English campaign by simply spamming longbowmen. That's it. They can fend off cavalry attacks. They can decimate infantry in a matter of seconds. They can destroy artillery because they have access to fire arrow naturally. They can pretty much beat any unit up to mid-game without any kind of effort or upgrade even. It's extremely easy for them to fend off any kind of charge from infantry, cavalry. They specifically have the place palings ability. They can destroy artillery easily. They have the best range for any unit, except for siege units, except for a trebuchet in the game. So, because of that, those 3 missions are absolutely brutal. As I've said, they must have patched them. But well, I am proud I could beat those 3 missions those 4, let's include 4 mainly, of the French campaign as I did on hard mode and version 1.00. Even with the bugs. Alright, but I can understand that for most people it won't be a pleasant experience. And while I understand that, difficulty is always, at the end of the day, a very positive thing. If it was for me, everyone would at least try to endure through this difficulty. I wouldn't change. This is the thing. Except for France in Chaos, which is plagued with bugs. Except for that one. The Siege of Paris and the Siege of Wallingford regarding the English campaign and Pont Baleine, I wouldn't change my experience. At the end of the day, I insulted and complained a lot in the heat of battle. Please understand that. At the moment, I complained a lot that the difficulty, it is artificial. That's not good. That's negative. They maybe should structure that. They maybe should have structured them differently. But the thing is, I am always pleased to face a challenge. It's better to have a challenge than to have what I'm going to describe right now, which is either an easy campaign on hard mode, or the case of Grey Goo, which is the most blatant and terrible, blatantly terrible and the worst shit ever, which is using the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer, which is the case of Grey Goo, the worst sin of the RTS genre I've seen in modern ages, and that's why I get so angry when I think about this. Never should the campaign be a tutorial for multiplayer. Any developer who thinks that's a pretty good idea will never innovate and will never contribute to the progress and the boom of the RTS genre, to the revival of the RTS genre. Never. Sorry, but if I may not be a developer. I'm just a guy analyzing games in depth. It's true, but if there's one thing I have clear regarding the RTS genre, is that no one who uses the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer will ever succeed. That person will never succeed in this genre. We need campaigns such as the one present in the original Warcraft 3, in the original, yes, Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne, the expansion, Armies of Exigo, Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard, Heroes of Annihilated Empires. Then I didn't like other aspects. Dawn of War, maybe that one was shorter, but it was a pretty good campaign. Never should the campaign of an RTS game should never be the tutorial. It should never act as a tutorial for multiplayer. Never. It should be its own separated thing. It should have its own entity and importance. Right? Then if you have a perfect multiplayer, awesome, you are great, you are the best developer on this planet, in this world, you are the best. But first of all, never use the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer. And this game, after, in a very obscure, in a very dark context in which everything is multiplayer, in which the RTS genre is absolutely dead or on the brink of destruction, there are no AAA RTS games at all. This is probably a bold move, creating an RTS game. Developers frown upon them because they think they won't be successful because of the lack of support, because base building mechanics have been deemed as unnecessary by the community because of the boom of MOBAs, multiplayer, etc. Well, in this context, in this chaotic and depressive and oppressive context for the RTS genre, and absolutely decadent, mediocre, in which base building is deemed as an unnecessary mechanic. In this dark context, a game which has 35 missions, and those missions don't act as a tutorial for multiplayer while they teach you the mechanics. They have their own entity, they have their own cohesively developed plot. They have the campaigns, they all have each mission has its own particular essence, nature. It has its own specific actions that you need to perform that make me remember Wallingford and not other missions, for example, or make me remember Point Baleine so much because of my suffering. Those moments should always be appreciated by the player base. In that regard, the player base is extremely ignorant. Sorry to say that, but it's the truth. They don't appreciate those moments because they don't realize those are the moments that you will always remember. I remember Wallingford. I remember spending a whole week to beat Point Baleine under such terrible circumstances, and I appreciate it. Contrary to what most of the modern relativist ideas would say. They would say, "I know it's difficult. It's not for most people. The game is not made for most people. Therefore, it's bad." No. That's the most positive aspect of the level design in this game. Just as I said that the landmarks and all of the mechanics that Relic introduced for this game were the best part of it. The level design, the best part of the level design is that the campaign, or the 4 campaigns we find, aren't a tutorial for multiplayer. They aren't a tutorial for multiplayer, and in this dark context, that is valiant, bold, and it should be appreciated. I know, it's sad we got to this point. This shouldn't be the case, but it is. Look at Grey Goo. Regarding the RTS genre, other genres have no excuse to use the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer. But in the case of RTS genre, we are coming from a very long history of meaningless campaigns. Grey Goo, Conan Unconquered, most of the modern indie attempts to create those campaigns, they failed miserably to create these cohesively developed campaigns. Awesome. That's awesome. This is the way. This game is the foundation. It's kind of like the stepping stone for a bright future of the for a bright future for the RTS genre, or of a bright future for the RTS genre. Only time will tell if others look at Age of Empires 4 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and follow its example instead of following that of Grey Goo from 2015. That game uses the campaign as a tutorial for the multiplayer section, and it failed miserably as it should. And I say this with deep pain because you can, if you didn't know, I am a fan of petroglyph games. Star Wars Empire at War was one of the first modern, let's say 3D RTS games I played. I played that game as a kid, so I have nostalgia, I have everything, so don't think I hate on petroglyph. They are the best, but Grey Goo wasn't a good game, and the use of the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer was the final nail in the coffin for me, for my opinion, for my analysis of that game. That is, for the game. It was its death, the last nail in its coffin, using the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer. Right. With all of that said, that's why it's important to watch the whole analysis, to not try to think, in order to not think that I'm a crazy guy just saying stupid things. With all of that said, with all of that context, and appreciating all of those moves, not using the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer, with all of that said, the campaign has one flaw, which is that it's the campaigns, all of them, they're somehow shallow. They do have a cohesively developed plot, which I will get to during the next category, which is the Grandeur. But they are shallow. They don't have complex objectives. For example, I remember one mission from the Saracen, or however that is pronounced, the Saracen campaign. One of the campaigns for Salahadin in Age of Empires 2, in which you eventually ran out of gold in the middle of the desert. It was quite brutal on hard mode. I remember many missions from Age of Empires 2, mythic, absolutely legendary missions, which were much more detailed regarding the objectives, regarding the different quests that you had to perform. They had much more objective variety. There's a huge lack of objective variety here, specifically during the Western campaigns, the British and the French campaigns. They have a terrible lack of objective variety. As I've said, 50% of each one is, of each of those campaigns, is defending a base under different circumstances, but the objective is the same. Lack of objective variety. And as I've said, they're pretty shallow. They could have been much better. They could have been much better, much longer. We always hope for that. 35 missions is pretty good. It will give you, if you play on hard mode and you play it like I did, well, you probably won't be able to once they update the game. This is version I played the hardest version of the game. I played the hardest version of the game. But anyways, if you play it on hard mode, I'm sure you will have some. The artificial intelligence is good enough as for you to face a challenge, a pretty decent challenge. Yes. Well, if you try to do this kamikaze crazy stuff I did here, well, it should be the original way everyone should play, but well, you get the point. The campaign has a pretty decent structure, except for the first two campaigns. That's 50% of the game, now I'm thinking, but well, I think the contrast between the first two campaigns and the other two, the Eastern campaigns, is big enough. The contrast is big enough because I don't think there are any defense missions for the Mongol and Russian campaigns. So, or one, I remember the first, the rebuilding Moscow and hold against the Horde. The Russian campaign was pretty balanced regarding that aspect. But, yeah, there are next to none defense missions during the second half of the game. That's the idea. All right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right. So, lack of objective variety regarding the level design. As a conclusion, I also appreciate the, as I've said, the fact the campaign is not used as a tutorial for multiplayer. That I can confirm it 100% to anyone who may be doubting about this, who may be wondering, well, but in the last 5 to 8, 10 years, everything has been, all of the campaigns have been not only shallow, but also tutorials for multiplayer. Well, this one is somehow shallow, but it's not a tutorial for multiplayer. It's a mixed bag. It's 50% and 50%, but it's not a tutorial for multiplayer. I can complain about a lot of things, but not that one. That one is not the case. It could have been longer. It could have been longer because, well, I say 35 missions, that's a lot. It sounds like a lot, but no. The missions aren't long. They mostly take 1 hour. If you don't have any kind of issues with the difficulty, you will complete them under 2 hours each. So it's pretty standard nowadays. But well, the campaigns are there. There are 4 of them, pretty well done. I hope they add more in the future, many more in the future, to the point they get to Age of Empires 2. It would be awesome. They are much more varied regarding the historical figures when compared to Age of Empires 3. And there's one more thing I wanted to highlight. This, I know, but that's, well, yes. Let's get to the Grandeur category for the analysis, the 4th category. Damn, I'm out of breath. I should drink some water, but well, let's continue. Grandeur. And this is also a bit related to the level design. No, not that much. No, a bit. Just a bit. The campaigns don't revolve around hero units. While I understand that this is Age of Empires, this is not Warcraft 3. This isn't the classic Blizzard's hero system. This is Age of Empires. It has never revolved around exclusively around hero units. It has never exclusively revolved around hero units. The gameplay and the story, no, it's not Warcraft 3. But I can see that I will point out that in Age of Empires 2, it somehow did revolve around the story of a single historical character. The story of a single historical character, Joan of Arc, Genghis Khan. This one resembles them partially. It partially resembles them because those characters are included, those historical figures. But you don't play exclusively with those units. You kind of like see the whole story, kind of like their descendants, maybe another hero unit. And you kind of like see, for example, at the beginning of the English campaign, you start out by playing with Henry I, King Henry I from Great Britain, and then you end up playing with Henry III after. There's a period in which you don't play with any hero unit. There's a transition, etc. Well, that's part of the campaign. But you get the point. It doesn't revolve around a single hero unit. And the gameplay mechanics don't revolve around hero units a lot. And while that is the case, they do have abilities. They can heal, they can improve damage, they can improve unit production. Those were some pretty awesome RPG touches, let's say, some light RPG elements added to the gameplay, which are great, a great addition. I was very pleased because they didn't overdo it. They didn't overdo it. They didn't went. They didn't. Sorry, they didn't. They didn't include a lot of RPG elements, such as, for example, Warcraft 3 or anything like that. No, that's not the case. They found a pretty good balance regarding RPG elements and RTS. It's not the case of Heroes of Annihilated Empires, which for example, that one which I analyzed recently, that one was almost like an isometric action RPG game. Everything revolved around a single hero unit. When properly leveled, it had all of the heaviest RPG elements I've seen in any RTS game. You could take out an entire army. Then we have, let's say, the middle ground, Warcraft 3, which also has heavy RPG elements. This one, it's an excellent balance. I liked the balance between abilities, passive improvements, and the usage of hero units. There's not much micro, as we usually as RTS professionals say. You don't have to activate a lot of abilities. The gameplay is much more related to unit production, which units you produce, which is the essence of RTS, army composition, and some real-time tactics, pretty well executed. So, regarding the Grandeur, sorry, I went back to the gameplay category a bit there. It has a cohesively developed plot in each one of the campaigns. The stories of the civilizations, the stories are about civilizations, not specific historical figures. That's the thing. When you look at the whole picture, it's the whole civilization, not a single hero unit. So that's why I say neither the gameplay or the none. The gameplay and the storyline, neither of them revolve around hero units at all. A single hero unit at all, or some hero unit. No. It's mostly about the fate of an empire. In all cases, the fate of the British Empire, the French Empire, the Mongol Empire, and the Russian Empire. They're about civilizations. The characters don't have much interaction. They don't talk. They don't have voiced actors for them at all. They only used the narrator. I think that's a negative aspect. They should have used narrators. It would have made the experience much better, richer. It would have been much richer, if you ask me, giving them the hero units voices other than the attack commands. But more or less know that it doesn't revolve around hero units, this storyline. So they are pretty much, the hero units don't exhibit their personalities at all. No, it's not focused around them. It's focused around the civilization, the different civilization, the story, how it evolved throughout the years, because you can see that all of the campaigns span across 100, 200, 300 years. So it's the fate of the civilization. It doesn't revolve around the story of a single hero unit, which we could see in Age of Empires 2, maybe a bit more. Alright, I'm running out of breath and we're running out of time, and I've also covered everything. It's a very complete analysis. So the Grandeur category, how the ambience, the soundtrack, it has some, I don't want to forget about it. The soundtrack is, I want to be comprehensive about my analysis. The soundtrack is, it has some light tunes when you're playing. There's not much variety, if you ask me. You kind of like have a theme and for that campaign, and it gets repeated. There are some moments in which the soundtrack, when you're attacking or defending, it gets epic to a certain degree. They are, of course, as it's a tradition in Age of Empires games, using music from that specific civilization or created by that specific civilization. So good. It could have been much more epic. The soundtrack, the stories are a bit shallow. They went for historical. For I said regarding this that playing the game and looking at the cinematics are pretty well. They have quality, AAA quality. They must be extremely expensive with the armor and real actors. It's like watching History Channel. I've joked about that. It's like watching History Channel. But yes, it's a mixed bag. It could have been much better. I hope that once they get to add more campaigns, they get that epic feeling that Age of Empires 2 had, which was also much harder, if you ask me. But well, this one had its peaks of difficulty. I don't know if it was unwillingly or willingly that they went for. If they originally intended to make Pont Balain, the Siege of Paris, the Battle of Formigny, the Battle of the Siege of Wallingford so tough, I don't think they were going for that, but that's what we got. What we played here. Maybe they patched it for just so most people can stop complaining, but I don't think they were going for that. Why? Because the reason is that the Mongol and the Russian campaigns, there's such a difference in difficulty that clearly they were going for something different when creating the Norman and the French campaigns. But well, I am analyzing what we got. Probably they will patch it, so I am pleased that I could finish this one on the hardest possible circumstances. The most difficult conditions. Alright, under the most difficult conditions. Alright. We're done with the Grandeur category. I wish I could have analyzed the characters, but they don't have personality at all. They're more or less like one more unit. While that was present in Age of Empires 2, they had a bit more of protagonism. And Age of Empires 3, if we compare it, well, it was the closest thing, the closest Age of Empires game to Warcraft 3, if you ask me, to the classic hero system. It is the one which had the heaviest RPG elements, because everything revolved around the character. It wasn't historical for the most part. It was much more its own thing. It was a different thing. It absolutely revolved around the characters. Morgan Black, if I'm not mistaken, the pirate, the pirate girl, Salahadin, all of those, the Fountain of Youth, then the Asian Dynasties expansion, pretty good. Then the Native Americans and the discovery of the New World. This is the new world where I live. The American continent. Alright. But, well, yes, it's a mixed bag. It's the weakest point, let's say, along with some parts of the level design that I've mentioned of the analysis. This I would say is the weakest point. The campaigns are shallow in their execution. They are not epic. They don't tell you an epic story. No. They try, but in my eyes, it's not enough. They could have done something much better. They add some degree of epicness, but regarding the plot, this is History Channel. There is no plot at all. They made it look epic, but there is no plot, there's no character development, there's no storyline. It's like History Channel. That's it. That's the best way to describe it, that expression. Innovation. As I've said, the landmarks, the landmarks, the way the different. Let's get to the final category for the analysis and the final and the conclusion and the final qualification. The fact that that the game allows you to play defensive strategies successfully by not allowing units to simply tear through walls without artillery, forcing you to build artillery. Pretty well done. The fact that the campaign is not a tutorial for multiplayer, I cannot believe I'm counting this as innovation, but we have to, given the circumstances, the dark circumstances, the degenerated and depressive circumstances of the beleaguered RTS genre, we have to count that. Not using the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer. In comparison to recent entries, I guess it's somehow it is some light, some tiny innovation which sheds some light, which sheds some light on this beleaguered genre. But well, omitting that sad fact, how the landmarks were a great idea. The light RPG elements were properly balanced. The real-time tactics elements, the fact that you need to create formations, pretty well executed, and it's nice how they blended those elements. The landmarks, the base building mechanics, the fact that the civilizations are so asymmetrical. This is the Age of Empires game with the most asymmetrical civilizations I've seen. Probably tied with Age of Empires 3 at some point. But Age of Empires Online, for example, in case you didn't know, you can play it offline as Project Celeste. It's done by... It was created by some Spanish fellow countrymen, I guess. Celeste means light brown in Spanish, so you can play it offline, just in case you didn't know. Age of Empires 2 as well was much more symmetrical, if you ask me. But how they blended, and this was the idea, how they blended these asymmetrical civilizations, how they blended all of these asymmetrical civilizations, all of these features, their unique units, their unique perks, their unique buildings, their unique landmarks, to those 3 layers I've mentioned. The classic rock, paper, scissors layer, the first layer. The armored and non-armored units, the secondary layer, and the gunpowder late game units layers, how they interact with each other, how they affect each other. It's pretty awesome. Clearly Relic has a lot of talent. Also World's Edge, I don't know how much they contributed to this. I will praise Relic because I know they are the main guys behind this. Clearly they have a lot of talent. This is not a Dawn of War 3 case. Clearly they discovered, or they created, more than discover, the way of the modern RTS, the way modern RTS games should follow. I am very pleased. I'm very pleased because this game has a lot of classic real-time strategy elements, but it has also a lot of innovation. It's a very good blend. At the beginning I didn't understand it, but after playing the whole game and understanding how it works and how it encouraged different play styles, how you could defensively beat the enemy, I'm very pleased with this. I love that they were respectful and they didn't make the campaign as a tutorial for multiplayer. Good. And they took the time to create 4 campaigns, short, a bit shallow at some points, but 4 campaigns. Good. But regarding the innovation, yes, the landmarks were a perfect solution. I would highlight the landmarks. A perfect solution. Or, well, not perfect, very creative. A lot of ingenuity. And how they balanced defensive gameplay, what I said at the beginning of the analysis regarding the gameplay category. How they balanced the damage dealt by cavalry and infantry to walls, especially to walls, and that we could no longer get through simply destroy. In Age of Empires 3, if you have a huge army, there's no point to creating walls. They're extremely weak. Here, it's important for an RTS game, and this is something StarCraft negatively influenced the rest of the RTS genre regarding this by not encouraging defensive gameplay. No walls, nothing at all. You just circle the enemy instantly. Here in this game, you can win, let's say, by attrition, by right now by ensuring the enemy runs out of resources, and your defenses were awesome. Especially if you're playing, I imagine on given the gameplay, I can deduce that if you play in a skirmish match or a multiplayer match in a very small map with scarce resources, well, playing defensively will be extremely effective. But as for anything, network of castles, and unless you have artillery, you can't get through walls. And the fact that you can get units on top of walls, archers, it's awesome. It's awesome how they took into account the defensive aspect of an RTS game, which, I must say it, StarCraft 2 absolutely ignored. In that case, Warcraft 3 encourages defensive strategies a bit more, just a bit more, but clearly they are not. It's absolutely unviable creating simply defensive towers in Warcraft, of course. But well, at least it's not. StarCraft 2 100% encourages 100% aggressive play. Warcraft 3, well, it's a bit more reduced because you have to pay more attention to which units you lose rather than how many enemy units you kill. And Age of Empires 4, I believe. Age of Empires 3, let's compare it to the previous Age of Empires entries. Age of Empires 3, the walls were useless. They were going the StarCraft 1 way, or Warcraft 3 way in that case, which was a wrong way for the franchise. Age of Empires 2, the walls are much more resistant, much more resilient. This game is much more similar to that. It's much more similar to Age of Empires 2 regarding the, let's say, the defensive economy or the defensive balance. The keeps are pretty powerful, so awesome. That's the most innovative aspect, even though it sounds so stupid. How they balanced the defensive aspect for the game. I can't stop repeating it, so I'll have to force myself to stop it. Sorry, because I commented this during the gameplay. It's part of the analysis. But well, the landmarks. We have the unique units. How asymmetrical the civilizations are. It's the most asymmetrical Age of Empires 4 game. So awesome regarding that. That's a lot of innovation. So with all of the things considered, just one more thing before we get to the conclusion. Also, how you bring ship faster to the base. There are a lot of tiny aspects. How you can add gunpowder to a lot of towers, that was present in Age of Empires 2. I know, but here it's a bit different. Gunpowder has the power, the power it should have originally had. It's threatening, powerful. When you see gunpowder, you could see the hand cannoneers wipe my army so fast. You learn to fear gunpowder in this game, which is awesome. It's a very realistic recreation they did. It's a very realistic and positive aspect of Age of Empires 4. How threatening gunpowder is, the different cannons, those things. So good. They gave importance to the things which required it, and not stupid things. I don't think it's easy to achieve what they did here. I don't think so. The blend, especially the blend and the perfect balance, and those 3 layers I've been commenting, and how they interact with each other. Because of this, and because of how, and considering, of course, the technical aspect, I loved it. I don't think it's cartoony. Maybe 70%, 50% realistic, 50% cartoony. It's not like Fortnite. It's not like Age of Empires Online. It's not like any cartoony, ultra cartoony game you would expect. No. The level design, as I've said, it had, with all of its flaws, also the technical aspect, the level design with its flaws, as I've said, shallow campaigns, but shallow and somehow short campaigns. It's not bad. They didn't use it as a tutorial for multiplayer. Regarding the Grandeur, it's the weakest aspect. They could have gone for something much more epic instead of doing History Channel. Regarding that, I also didn't like the fact that this game is very politically correct. I didn't like that. It's the first time in which they kind of like, they forced, I don't know if they forced the developers, but I will assume it, because there were more civilizations. They probably forced the developer to create 50% Western campaigns and 50% Eastern campaigns. I don't like that. That's terrible. That's a stupid idea. I don't like politically correct games. I also don't like that the game has a bit of propaganda. It has some propaganda in it. I don't like that. That's pretty severe. Politics should never be involved in video games. It has propaganda. I don't like that. It's very politically correct. Regarding that aspect, in Age of Empires 3, they removed the word colonial age and they replaced it for commerce age. That's also stupid. So they have a lot of they have a history with political correction at Microsoft, which I absolutely despise. That's stupid, and you shouldn't be doing that. But the game, and that's probably because of Microsoft and not Relic. So Relic, you guys are great. Fear not. Any person at Relic who may found this old, I assume they will not find my analysis and my playthrough right now, because my channel is so small. But great, you did a great job. It wasn't an easy feat, and I am sad that they somehow ruined the original idea for your campaigns with what they did. This game can have perfectly. If we have something Western, we need to have something Eastern. relativism and not caring about the quality of your product at its finest. But that's Microsoft, I'm sure. That's not Relic. Regarding Relic, the gameplay, strictly and objectively regarding Relic and the gameplay, awesome work, guys. The dark context in which you also did this, because you were coming from Dawn of War 3, also take all of you take that into account. It's like when I mentioned this over at in a private conversation in Discord. It's like the first time you as a student you fail an exam. Well, then you present to the you sit up for the next exam. Well, it's the same case. You guys, let's say, fail your first exam in a long time, your first examination with Dawn of War 3, but you endured and probably ignited the spark of a whole generation of new RTS games. I hope that's the future of the RTS genre. This beleaguered genre deserves better. Company of Heroes 3, well, that's real-time tactics. The new Terminator Resistance game, Five Nations, which I wanted to try, but the resolution was a bit. They need to polish that. But well, let's hope this is the spark that reignites the RTS genre, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the final qualification for Age of Empires 4. Given the context, given everything, I must also say that if you're a veteran player, you will probably be a bit disappointed. You won't find in this something like Armies of Mexico. If you're a veteran RTS player, you will be a bit disappointed. If you're a newcomer, you will love this game. It's as easy as this. If you're a veteran, you probably were expecting even more, and you won't find it. But it's pretty good. Pretty good, the result. Pretty good. It's a throwback to the golden age of RTS games. Pretty well done. Pretty well done, and not because of nostalgia, but because the gameplay mechanics were properly executed. I'll give Age of Empires 4 from S to F. I will give it after. This is probably the qualification that has changed the most during my analysis. But I will give it. I want to be responsible with the objective truth of the situation. I'll give it an 8. Let's say an A from S to F, an A. I'll give it an 8 as a hardcore RTS veteran, let's say. If I weren't a hardcore RTS veteran, and if I were just considering the impact and how happy I am internally regarding this release, because it's the first AAA RTS release in a long time, I would give it a 10 without even thinking about it a second, or I don't know, 9.5 out of 10, something like that, or 9, let's say 9.2, 9.3, something like that, as a hardcore RTS fan who is overjoyed by playing once again a AAA RTS game. That's my inner fan speaking. But when compared to StarCraft 2, to the campaigns in StarCraft 2, which is the most successful modern example, well, I would say it's better than Legacy of the Void, but that's an expansion. That would be unfair. um, that would be unfair. Well, by the sheer amount of missions, because that Legacy of the Void was way too short in for me. They had to add the epilogue with the ending to make it a bit longer. So yeah, when compared to StarCraft 2 to the 3 expansions altogether, well, it's not as good. It's not as long as well. But when compared to all those other modern examples, pretty good, pretty good. Maybe a bit more than 8. Let's say A plus. Let's say A plus. 8.5, 8. I would go for 8.7, close 8 plus A plus plus. Let's say close to 9. 8.7. Sorry for that. Not an 8. 8.7. I would go for A plus plus, or maybe yes. It doesn't get to 9 as a hardcore RTS fan, but I would give 8.7, 8.8, 8.8, 8.7, like that. 8.75. I would say this game is it's much closer to 9 than 8, if you ask me. But well, that's because I love the RTS genre. Of course, when compared to it doesn't get to 9, but when you compare these to other modern RTS games, this one is the best one, naturally. I'm comparing it to things like Grey Goo, I don't know, another AAA recent example, Forged Battalions, Planetary Annihilation. Well, this one has much more quality, but of course, when compared to the kings of the RTS genre, well, of course, it's not as good, but it's